Nestled in the heart of the Midwest, Naperville, Illinois, is a shining example of suburban affluence. Known for its picturesque neighborhoods adorned with vibrant gardens and well-manicured lawns, this affluent Chicago suburb boasts a reputation for a high quality of life. Tree-lined streets invite families to stroll and children to play, while charming shops and fine dining options add a touch of urban flair to the tranquil atmosphere. However, beneath this idyllic facade lies a community deeply governed by its Homeowners Association, or HOA. In Naperville, strict adherence to community rules is not just encouraged, it's enforced with an iron fist. The HOA's mission is to preserve property values and maintain the aesthetic appeal of the neighborhood, leading to an intricate web of regulations that every resident must navigate. From restrictions on paint colors to regulations about landscaping, the HOA's influence permeates daily life. In this environment of order and conformity, one homeowner stands out. While appearing like any other resident, they lead a quiet existence filled with mundane routines and friendly interactions with neighbors. But unbeknownst to the HOA, this seemingly ordinary individual harbors a secret. They are a highly skilled property lawyer with years of experience navigating the complexities of real estate law. This backdrop sets the stage for an unforeseen conflict when this homeowner receives a fine for something as innocuous as parking in their own driveway, a rule that strikes many as absurd and overreaching. As whispers spread through the community about this bizarre infraction, tensions simmer beneath the surface. What begins as an ordinary day in Naperville spirals into a legal showdown that will challenge not only the authority of the HOA, but also the sanity of its rules. In the midst of Naperville's well-kept streets lives our protagonist, a homeowner who blends effortlessly into the fabric of the community. By day, they are the quintessential resident, tending to their garden, engaging in small talk with neighbors, and volunteering at local events. Their warm smile and friendly demeanor make them well-liked, fostering a sense of camaraderie with those around them. They cherish this quiet life, valuing the peace and stability that comes with being part of a close-knit neighborhood. However, beneath this unassuming exterior lies a hidden layer of complexity. This homeowner is not just another face in the crowd. They are a highly skilled property lawyer with years of experience navigating the intricacies of real estate law. While they have chosen to lead a life away from the courtroom spotlight, their expertise remains sharp and ready for action. They have dedicated themselves to understanding not only property rights, but also the often convoluted regulations imposed by homeowners associations. Despite their legal prowess, the homeowner has no desire for conflict. Instead, they seek harmony within their community, a place where neighbors respect one another's choices and rules promote collective well-being rather than stifling individuality. This desire for peace drives them to comply with HOA regulations, even when some rules feel nonsensical or overly restrictive. Yet, when faced with the absurdity of being fined for parking in their own driveway, a sense of injustice stirs within them. The fine feels like an attack on their autonomy and an infringement upon the very lifestyle they cherish. As frustration mounts, this ordinary homeowner must grapple with a decision: remain submissive to unreasonable authority or step forward as an advocate for change. Their journey is about to transform from that of a quiet resident into a determined challenger against the overreach of the HOA. One unremarkable Tuesday morning, as the sun bathed Naperville in a golden glow, the homeowner stepped outside to greet the day. They felt a sense of tranquility as they admired their well-kept driveway, a space that had always been a source of pride. However, that serenity was shattered when they noticed an envelope tucked beneath the windshield wiper of their car. Curiosity turned to disbelief as they unfolded the letter, revealing a fine from the Homeowners Association. the reason for the fine. Parking in their own driveway, a rule that seemed utterly absurd. How could this be? The Homeowners Association had deemed it a violation of community guidelines, citing concerns over aesthetic uniformity and property values. Yet, to the homeowner, it felt like an invasion of their personal space and rights. Confusion morphed into frustration as they reread the notice, struggling to comprehend how such a trivial matter had escalated into an official reprimand. As they stood there, staring at the fine, a mix of emotions swirled within them. Anger at the HOA's overreach and disappointment in the rigidity of community rules that stifled individuality. This was not just a financial penalty. It was an affront to their dignity as a resident and homeowner. Friends in the neighborhood were equally baffled. Many voiced their disbelief during casual conversations at local coffee shops and parks, questioning how such an unreasonable rule could have been enforced in the first place. With each passing moment, the initial shock transformed into a simmering resolve. The homeowner knew they couldn't let this injustice slide unnoticed. Drawing on their hidden expertise in property law, they began to formulate a plan, preparing to confront what they perceived as an absurdity that needed to be challenged. Little did they know that this incident would set in motion a legal battle that would redefine their relationship with both the HOA and their community. From the perspective of the Homeowners Association, the parking rule was not merely a capricious regulation. It was a cornerstone of their broader mission to uphold community standards and preserve property values. The HOA prided itself on maintaining a certain aesthetic that residents had come to expect when choosing to live in Naperville. To them, a uniform appearance was essential for fostering pride among homeowners and attracting potential buyers to the neighborhood. The HOA operated under the belief that even small infractions could lead to a slippery slope. If one homeowner were allowed to park in their driveway without consequence, it might set a precedent, inviting others to bend or break the rules as well. This could potentially lead to a decline in property values, which was something they were determined to prevent at all costs. The board members often cited statistics showing how communities with strict adherence to guidelines maintained higher property values and more appealing appearances. To enforce these policies, the HOA had established rigorous monitoring practices and a system for reporting violations. They employed community members to patrol the streets and identify any infractions, no matter how minor. This vigilant approach was rooted in a desire for order, but often came across as heavy-handed. Board meetings were filled with discussions about compliance and enforcing rules, sometimes leading to heated debates about what constituted reasonable oversight versus overreach. In their view, the parking rule was part of a necessary framework designed to create harmony within the community. However, this perspective lacked consideration for individual circumstances and personal freedoms. As the Homeowners Association continued to uphold these regulations with unwavering commitment, they remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface, a legal challenge from an unexpected adversary who would soon question their authority and approach. As the homeowner stood in their driveway, the fine clutched tightly in their hand. A whirlwind of emotions surged within. Initially, disbelief washed over them, mingling with a growing sense of indignation. How could they be penalized for simply parking in their own driveway? This was not just an inconvenience. It felt like a personal affront, an unwarranted intrusion into their life. The moment was heavy with irony. A skilled property lawyer by profession, they had spent years navigating legal intricacies and advocating for clients caught in similar predicaments. Yet here they were, on the receiving end of what felt like a ludicrous and unjustified reprimand. The very expertise that had equipped them to handle such disputes now cast a shadow over their thoughts. What should have been an ordinary situation quickly morphed into a deep sense of frustration and a burning desire to take action. As they paced back and forth in their driveway, the wheels in their mind began to turn. Thoughts raced about the HOA's governance structure, the bylaws, and potential avenues for appeal. This was not merely a fight against an absurd rule. It was a chance to stand up for their rights as a homeowner. The more they pondered the situation, the more determined they became to challenge the HOA's authority. No longer willing to accept this injustice without a fight, they resolved to draw upon their legal background. The fine would not be dismissed lightly. It would serve as a catalyst for something much larger. They envisioned presenting a compelling case that questioned not only the validity of the parking rule, but also the HOA's broader practices. With each passing moment, the initial shock transformed into a steely resolve. This homeowner would not allow the HOA's overreach to stand unchallenged. The stage was set for an unexpected confrontation that would test both their skills and their commitment to justice. With a newfound determination, the homeowner transformed their initial frustration into a methodical plan of action. First and foremost, they turned to the Homeowners Association's bylaws, poring over every line with a critical eye. Late nights were spent at the dining table, surrounded by legal texts and notes, as they scrutinized the regulations governing their community. The aim was clear: to identify any inconsistencies or ambiguities that could undermine the legitimacy of the parking rule. Next came the documentation phase. They began observing their neighbors' parking habits, taking meticulous notes on instances where other residents parked in their driveways without repercussion. Armed with a camera, they discreetly captured evidence of violations by others that went unpunished. Each snapshot served as a reminder that the HOA's enforcement policies appeared selectively applied, further fueling their resolve to challenge the fine. Simultaneously, the homeowner embarked on extensive research into similar cases across other communities. They scoured online legal databases and forums, seeking out precedents where homeowners had successfully contested unreasonable HOA rules. What did those cases have in common? How had those individuals navigated the complexities of their situations? Each revelation added to their growing arsenal of knowledge and strategy. As they compiled this wealth of information, the homeowner created a comprehensive file, a blend of photographs, documentation of neighborhood practices, and legal precedents that challenged the validity of the HOA's rules. It was not just about fighting back against the fine. It was about standing up for every homeowner who felt stifled by arbitrary regulations. With each piece of evidence meticulously organized and cataloged, confidence replaced uncertainty. The once quiet resident had transformed into a determined advocate for fairness and transparency, ready to confront an organization that had overstepped its bounds. This was no longer just about parking. It was about challenging an authority that needed to be held accountable. As they prepared for the next steps, one thing became abundantly clear: this fight was only just beginning. As the date of the HOA meeting approached, anticipation hung thick in the air. The homeowner meticulously prepared their case, organizing every piece of evidence and crafting a compelling narrative that would lay bare the absurdity of the parking rule. They knew that this confrontation was not just about their individual situation. It was a chance to challenge the broader injustices that many residents felt but had yet to voice. To bolster their case, the homeowner began reaching out to neighbors, sharing their experience and inviting them to join the fight. To their surprise, many residents were eager to lend support. Over casual gatherings and coffee breaks, stories emerged of similar frustrations with various HOA rules. rules that seemed overreaching or inconsistently enforced. Neighbors who had once accepted the status quo began to see a glimmer of hope in unity. Word spread quickly, and soon a small group formed, neighbors who were tired of feeling powerless against the HOA's strict regulations. They met regularly, discussing strategies and sharing their own experiences with the association. With each meeting, confidence grew and a sense of camaraderie emerged. Together, they decided to attend the upcoming HOA meeting as a united front. The night before the meeting, the homeowner double-checked their notes, rehearsing key points aloud in front of a mirror. They envisioned standing before the board, presenting not just facts and figures, but also appealing to the shared values of community and fairness. This was about more than just parking. It was about reclaiming their rights as homeowners. On the day of the meeting, nerves tingled in the homeowner's stomach as they arrived at the community center, flanked by supportive neighbors. Voices buzzed around them as other residents gathered in anticipation. The time for action had come. As they took a deep breath and stepped into the room filled with attentive faces, determination surged within them. It was time to turn the tables on an organization that had underestimated them, and time to stand up for what was right. The atmosphere in the community center was charged with tension as residents filed into the meeting room, murmurs of anticipation echoing off the walls. The long table at the front, where the HOA board members sat, loomed like an imposing barrier. Familiar faces filled the seats, but this time there was a palpable energy among the homeowners, a sense of unity and collective resolve that had been absent in previous meetings. As the clock ticked closer to the start of the meeting, the homeowner felt their heart race, but they steadied themselves with a deep breath. They glanced around at the supportive faces of their neighbors, many of whom had come to witness this pivotal moment. Each whisper of encouragement bolstered their confidence. They were not alone in this fight. When it was finally their turn to speak, the homeowner rose from their seat, channeling both nerves and determination. The board members regarded them with a mix of skepticism and curiosity, unaware of the legal expertise that lay behind their calm demeanor. With clear and steady voice, they began to articulate their arguments against the parking rule that had prompted this entire confrontation. Citing specific sections of the HOA bylaws, they highlighted inconsistencies and gaps in logic that undermined the authority of the board. "How can we be penalized for utilizing our own driveways?" they asked, making direct eye contact with board members as they spoke. Their words resonated with others in the room. Heads nodded in agreement as residents reflected on their own frustrations with seemingly arbitrary rules. As they continued, the homeowner laid out evidence collected from neighbors and researched cases that demonstrated how similar rules had been challenged elsewhere. Each point made was supported by facts and compelling anecdotes that painted a vivid picture of an organization overstepping its bounds. The board listened intently but remained stoic, trying to maintain control over the meeting. Yet there was no denying that a shift was occurring. For every argument presented, murmurs of support rippled through the audience. This was not just a confrontation. It was a challenge to authority that would resonate long after this meeting adjourned. As the homeowner concluded their presentation, a sense of triumph washed over them, a feeling that change was within reach. As the homeowner continued to present their case, it became increasingly clear that their legal knowledge was a powerful tool. They navigated the complexities of HOA bylaws with ease, seamlessly dismantling the board's arguments one by one. With each counterpoint made, the tension in the room shifted. What had once felt like an uphill battle now seemed to tilt in their favor. "Let's consider the implication of this rule," they stated confidently, referencing specific sections of the bylaws that outlined the purpose of community regulations. Were these rules designed to promote harmony, Or have they become instruments of oppression? The question hung in the air, resonating deeply with the residents who had long felt marginalized by rigid enforcement policies. The homeowner then highlighted inconsistencies in how rules were enforced. They presented documented evidence showing that other homeowners had parked in their driveways without facing similar fines. This selective enforcement is not only unfair, but it also undermines the integrity of our community, they argued, glancing at board members who squirmed under scrutiny. The room buzzed with murmurs of agreement from fellow residents who recognized their own frustrations mirrored in the homeowner's words. As they made a compelling case against the HOA's authority, support swelled from those present. Neighbors began to voice their own grievances, sharing stories of overreach and confusion about various rules that had stifled their enjoyment of homeownership. It was as if a dam had broken. Voices rose in solidarity, echoing sentiments that had remained unspoken for too long. With each passing moment, the homeowner's strategic use of legal knowledge transformed the dynamics of the meeting. Instead of being on the defensive, they led a charge for transparency and fairness within the community. The board members sat on edge as they realized that this confrontation could ignite a movement among residents who were ready to reclaim their rights. The tables had turned, and what began as a lonely fight against a fine was evolving into a powerful challenge against systemic overreach, one that would not be easily dismissed. As the meeting drew to a close, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. The Homeowners Association board, faced with mounting evidence and impassioned voices of support from the community, found themselves cornered. After a heated discussion among the board members, it became clear that they could no longer ignore the collective frustration of the residents. In a surprising turn of events, the board announced that they would reconsider the parking rule in light of the compelling arguments presented by the homeowner. While an outright repeal was not immediately on the table, a compromise was proposed. A review of the current HOA regulations would be initiated, allowing for resident input and potential amendments to ensure fairness and transparency. Cheers erupted from the gathered neighbors as they felt their voices had finally been heard. The homeowner stood quietly at first, absorbing the moment. This wasn't just a personal victory, it was a transformative shift for the entire community. The once silent frustrations had sparked a movement for change that promised to reshape how the HOA operated. In the days following the meeting, the homeowner took on a new role as an advocate for fairer practices within the HOA. They organized community forums where residents could voice their concerns and contribute to discussions about necessary changes. Their legal expertise became an invaluable resource as they guided neighbors on understanding their rights and navigating HOA bylaws effectively. The driving force behind these efforts was not only to challenge unjust rules, but also to foster a sense of community ownership and empowerment among residents. As they collaborated with neighbors, they witnessed a newfound camaraderie taking root, a shared commitment to make their neighborhood a better place. What began as an isolated conflict over parking evolved into a movement towards greater accountability and inclusivity within their homeowners association. The homeowner had turned an absurd rule into an opportunity for advocacy, ultimately transforming both their own life and that of their community for years to come.